The following is a presentation of the Six Arrows Radio Network.
Episode 58, Ham Radio 360 podcast. This time, all about 1.25 meters, or like I like to call it, 220 megahertz, coming up.
Hello, this is Gordon West, WB6NOA, and you are tuned in to Ham Radio 360 podcast.
MTCRadio.com presents Ham Radio 360, the podcast, with your host, Cale Nelson, K4CDN.
Welcome into show 58. So tickled you're here. My name's Cale. K4CDN is the call, and just excited that you've given us another chance to edutain you about all things amateur radio. I didn't make that word up. I just use it because it sounds pretty cool. Edutain, which is kind of like entertain and educate. Hope you're getting both of those every time you tune in to this show and our Workbench podcast, which is hugely popular right now. Just a big shout out to Jeremy and George, just banging it out, man. They are doing a tremendous job over there, and make it fun for even a nerd like... I decided I'm not a geek anymore. After I listened to the last 3 episodes of Workbench, I'm not a geek. I thought I was a geek all these years. I'm not a geek. I'm just a nerd. Those guys are geeks. And if you're a geek, you're going to love Workbench Podcast. If you hadn't checked it out, make sure you do. It's in the same RSS feed as this show, and we air it the opposite week of this one. So next week, they'll be talking about meters, I believe. So if you've got questions about meters, any kind of meters, let them know at the Workbench Show site. And you can find that at hamradio360.com/WB. Now, this podcast airs the opposing weeks, and we're found at hamradio360.com. We're also on the iOS app now, so if you're an Apple user, I'm not, sorry, but if you are, we've got a brand new app that Nick N3WG Garner developed for us through his company Pignology. Thank you so much, Nick and Pignology, for that. You can find that in the App Store. If you got questions, you're not really sure where to find it, just get on over to the hamradio360.com webpage, and everything is there for you. I really don't know what happened, but here recently I've been getting a lot of feedback from the listeners. Well, I know what happened is we ask you every time we come on the air to interact with us, and Workbench has been generating a lot of that. And the last couple of shows here on Ham Radio 360 have just recently heard from a gentleman in the service who's serving overseas, studying for his license right now. No VEs, no Mars where he's at, so he's studying, waiting to take the exam. Stay safe, man, and can't wait to get you home, get your license, and get you on the air. We've got people who are testing, who have just tested. Actually, we got someone testing this week on Thursday, and just can't wait to hear back the report from passing his tech and general testing, same session. My family's studying, which is really cool. Just want to say congratulations if you've recently gotten your license, recently upgraded. That's a big deal, and we are excited for you. We're excited for you listening. It's huge to know that you're out there, so we really, really appreciate hearing from you. Whether it's an email or text, tweet, Facebook message, posting, whatever, liking our stuff, sharing our stuff is very important. So thank you for all that. There's some other ways to share with us, like our friends Donald, Alan, and Kenneth. They're Patreons. They're patrons over at Patreon. If you don't know what that is, it's a site where you can give per episode if you choose to. You don't have to, but it's available, and the link there is on the hamradio360.com website, as well as Brett, Andrew, and Dave. Those guys gave through PayPal, and I just wanted to call you out and say thank you. We've also been shipping some hats, patches, and stickers, and those really, really help as well. So thanks to every one of you for keeping the podcast going. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, as you can imagine, and we hope you enjoy this show coming up. We're going to talk about 220 megahertz. We're going to talk to Ron and Tim from BridgeCom. Now, we've had them on before. We're going to talk a little more stuff, what they're doing. We're going to kind of play ping pong, actually, on the conversation here, because we kind of get all over the place, but we're solely kind of trying to focus on 220, but they bring out some really cool tech they're developing there at BridgeCom. So let's get right into that here with our friends Ron and Tim from BridgeComSystems.com. Tell us a little bit about what's happening with you guys and how the year's progressing for you.
Well, thanks for having us, Cale. Really, we've been kind of getting back from Dayton and trying to finally get caught up. Both Ron and I were out of the office here a little bit in July, so with all that, we're still playing catch up a little bit, and it's finally time to look for what's coming up in the next 12 or 24 months and like I said, going to Dayton again next year and all those kinds of good things. Got some Hamfest coming up here in August with Huntsville and Albuquerque and Shelby, and then Peoria and the Chicago FM Expo in Belvedere. So that's August, September, and then we'll be into October. And I think there's a couple in October around town here in Kansas City area. And then Fort Wayne. I think that'll pretty much then close out our Hamfest schedule for the year if everything works out right. May try and get to one other in there, but if we can squeeze it in somewhere.
You guys, you've been really busy with Hamfest. Can you see that it's been a boost to your business by being there in front of the consumer, not just a guy mentioning you on a podcast, not just having a website, but being there in front of people?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no better way to talk to a customer than seeing the whites of their eyes. We can talk over email, we can talk over the phone. Heck, we could even talk over Skype or something like that if we need to. But, seeing somebody, the whites of their eyes, and getting to know how they laugh and how they think always helps us to not only, communicate effectively with that customer, but also, make relationships and they really tell us kind of, what they want us to make, which is always good to hear. We can't always make it, but we like listening anyway.
Well, that's how you got started in the 220, was Ron seeing a need that, hey, there needs to be a repeater at this show for 220 megahertz.
Yeah, I think he went to Dayton a couple different years, and everybody kept saying, well, you've got a 440 and a 2 meter, why don't you make a 220? And, the response was, well, if I can, I will. So it finally got to the point where he could. So he did, BridgeCom did, and then, got on board and helped out. And it's been the last, we're approaching 2 years anyway, of having it out. It's been gangbusters. So I think there's getting close to 100 of them out there now. So
I was going to ask you, did you know how many were? So close to 100 units in service. That's just repeaters. That's not handhelds. That's not mobiles. That's just 100 repeat. That's 2 every state. That's a pretty good place to start, wouldn't you say? 2 years, I'd take it.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for a little old BridgeCom to have 100 of them out there is pretty awesome. Plus the 2 meter and 440 stuff. But yeah, just the 220. There's been almost 100 of them out there.
Fantastic. Now, you guys, you do the repeaters, you do mobiles, you do handhelds. You've got all of that covered into the 220 megahertz band. We've talked in the past, mentioned maybe a 2 meter mobile, a 440 mobile. Have y'all progressed any further on those?
It's still in the works, but maybe Ron can speak a little bit more to where we are on that process.
Yeah, the 2 meter mobile and the 440 mobile, the hardware is completed. It's just a matter of doing the software and porting the 220 mobile software over to the other platforms, and then of course making adjustments to the programming software. It's just how many hours are in a day and all the other things going on. So that's the emphasis on that. But it is in process. We do need to get that out. But at this point, it's not ready for ship. So, but it will be a 50 watt VHF and a 40 watt. I'm sorry, 50 watt VHF and a 40 watt UHF, or 440.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'll take it. That's a nice high power rig for sure. And you going to use the same chassis as your 220 machine over here?
Absolutely, yeah. It'll be off the same. The software and the functionality will be exactly the same, just operating in a different spectrum.
Well, as a really dumb consumer, I really appreciate the very clean, plain English instructions. The software is very easy to use. That makes it really simple for me. So, on behalf of the rest of the dumb guys listening, thank you for that.
Oh yeah,
there's 3 other dumb guys, not just me.
Well, it makes a difference. I mean, the intent was to create a product that, out of the box, it would be very intuitive to use. Now we're talking about the 220 mobile we just released a couple months ago. There are some videos on our YouTube channel, one where we go over the actual product, and then I just released another video here about a week ago where I went through our quick start guide that's on a couple pages of the owner's guide, where I show how quick and easy it is to type in a frequency, set your PL tone, and then look at your output power and change that if you want, and then observe, of course, all the effects of it. So if folks want to take a look at our YouTube channel and subscribe to that, they'll get updates from us about various things we're doing, and we've got more in the works here. But yeah, it does need to be intuitive so that a guy's not needing to learn how to run a computer, but weren't learning how to run a radio and enjoying the radio. And that was what the purpose of it was, is to just keep it simple.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And I know many others have spoken to me. They appreciated that part, that aspect of what you guys were doing, not only providing an alternative to what was already there, but providing one that they could enjoy and not have to learn how to read a new language or, go read a website somewhere for 45 minutes trying to figure out which driver to use on a programming cable. So that's important. Thank you very much. We talked about why 220, and there's so many aspects of that, and hopefully here later in the show we'll be able to talk about some of the practical applications with some BridgeCom customers. That's my goal here for this program. So tell us a little bit about the mindset of going into the programming. You say make it intuitive, Ron. What are you looking to do? Besides, it's easy to say I want to make it simple, but when you're saying I've got to port the software over from the 220 machine to the 440 or the 2-meter machine, how does that work? I mean, you say port over. Does that mean I have to just install it into this radio and then change some of the parameters?
Cale, if I can do it with as little, I mean, I've got 2A radio experience, obviously being here, but with as little amateur radio experience as I have, then I think just about anybody can do it.
Yeah.
But I think Ron may have a better answer yet. So,
Well, I don't know if there's a couple different questions. When you say intuitive, you're talking about the user interface to the radio. I mean, that's what I was meaning when a person opens up the box, turns it on, and they automatically just type in a frequency, and then now I'm on my repeater. Okay, and then of course having a quick start guide to get you going, that really helped too. But as far as from a development perspective of porting software, I mean, that's a common technique that code developers use, is that they'll create what you'd call a core piece of software that's sort of platform independent. And that what happens is that this code that works the user's interface and all that can be changed from one platform to the next. Now you've got and that's the code that's usually ported, okay? The code that is changed is, for example, how to write to the synthesizer or the phase lock loop, as they call it. This is what changes the frequency. Okay, those are the things that are adjusted and reprogrammed. But the overall core code that makes the radio function is what's ported, and that's why the user experience. Let's say if you learn the 220 radio or our mobile, and you go and get a 440 rig, you're going to know how to use it. Because you already know how the user interface works, because you've got experience with it already. So effectively you're inheriting the same piece of software and porting it from one side to the next.
Which is exactly what an end user wants, is knowing how to take it out of the box, turn it on, put the local repeaters, the PL tones in, and go to work, and not have to worry about, well, here's another radio I have to learn how to program. Where's my manual? So if they're familiar with their 220 machine, when the 220 rig, when the 2-meter 440 rigs hit the market, they're going to be good to go.
Hey, Cale, even more than that, too, because it's kind of menu-driven, it's easy to think like, you look at a tree-style menu. And if you have that kind of thought process in your mind, I mean, that's kind of what it is.
Yeah, I got you. Makes sense to me. Yeah, and knowing that I can take it out of the box and get going with it, that's a great selling point. And they're built like tanks on top of everything else.
Yeah, the construction's really nice. I mean, it does take a lot away from commercial. The ruggedness and the requirement as far as having something that's durable, especially the microphone. It's weighty. It feels good in your hand.
Yep.
The audio is good. The ability to adjust the deviation levels is at the hands of the user. They can set this radio up, personalize it for themselves. There's some flexibility in that. And I also might add the same kind of approach that we did with the repeaters is really what we did with the mobile. And that the repeaters, whether you buy a 2-meter repeater from us, a 440 repeater, or a 220 repeater, they all work the same in terms of the user interface. They just have different, they just operate in their respective versions of the band. Mm-hmm. And so the same software goes in all of them except that how they're programmed. So
you can rack out your whole club shack, and
one programming software will program all three of them, all three flavors.
Cool.
So and the same cable works with all of them. So
nice.
Yeah.
I want to come back. I want to talk about some of this furthering digital technology with the guys from BridgeCom Systems. We got Tim, we got Ron on here. These are the brains and the brawn behind BridgeComSystems.com. And, we've got Tim. He's the road warrior. So we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Stay tuned, guys. This is Kel, Ham Radio 360 Podcast.
Hi, Dan, KB6NU here. You know, there's always been a bit of a mystique about operating CW, and sometimes it's difficult for newcomers to literally crack the code. Well, that's what my book, The CW Geek's Guide to Having Fun with Morse Code, is all about. Written in my no-nonsense style, it's full of practical information that will help you have fun learning and using Morse code, including how to choose a key, how to tune in CW signals, how to make contact, and then what to do once you've made contact. Let the CW Geek help you have more fun with Morse code. Go to kb6nu.com/CWGeek and get started today.
Back with Ron and Tim from BridgeComSystems.com, our friends from up in the Midwest. And, I got to get off topic here for just a second. Football season is rapidly approaching, and Tim's a ball fan. I know, because if I tweet about the Panthers, the Carolina Panthers, Tim's got something to say about these Chief guys. Is that a pretty good assumption there, Tim?
I was sitting here doing the tomahawk chop while you were talking, so yeah, I'd say it's a good assumption.
Yeah, and he's also wearing a Chiefs. Well,
I got a Chiefs polo on today, just randomly. But
how about that? Yeah,
well, training camp started, so I figured I should show some support.
Yeah. Well, I've gone to training camp twice now. It's hot, man, but it's fun to watch those guys get ready. I'm excited, but we didn't come to talk about. I just had to throw that in there because I knew that Tim was a football fan as well. So I'm excited.
Well, we're looking forward to 2017 Super Bowl, where the Chiefs can meet the Panthers, so that way they can get beat by the AFC West twice in a row.
I'll take your trip to the Super Bowl. We'll talk about the winner after the game. How's that?
Sounds good.
Okay,
Sounds good.
Okay. Hey, there's a lot of really neat technology out there right now with ham radio, digital modes, digital operations. It seems like it was kind of out there on the fringe, and then Dayton happened, and then everybody jumped in this digital modes operating. DMR seems to have just exploded, especially in the local area here. But the DMR is not the only digital mode. There's D-Star and whatnot. Ron, you mentioned that during dinner, after we finished a convention on Saturday night, you were telling George, I believe, or maybe George and Jeremy both, about an interface you have to interface your repeaters with D-Star.
Yeah, all of our repeaters support a 25-pin accessory connector, and they allow for connecting to a D-Star modem. And there is I believe there's an app note on our website that you could reference for how to connect to certain of these that are out there. I think there's several flavors or several manufacturers making these, but it doesn't matter. We can communicate with any one of them.
Right.
But yeah, you can effectively turn a BridgeCom repeater into a hybrid repeater where it will work with your conventional PL tones in and out, and then it will also handle a D-Star connection. The system will effectively know which one's calling in, and then handle that appropriately. So yes, don't think you're a BridgeCom repeater, or if you're looking at one, we can do some D-Star with you.
Yeah, so it's not just conventional analog here. We're looking at a couple of pieces of extra gear, and you almost have a dual-purpose repeater. Is that a good way to dual purpose? Is that a good way to say it?
Yeah, that would be a good way to put it.
Okay.
It would work as a conventional repeater for handling the club's activities, and then if a D-Star call came in and there's a D-Star modem attached to it that's tied into the reflector system, it would manage that as well.
The DMR seems to be the hotness right now. Is that something similar? Do you have that capacity as well?
Well, we have a product called TLNet that would allow for us to link Moto Turbo DMR repeaters or enhance that the IP Site Connect, as they call it, technology. And we are a licensed Moto Turbo third-party app developer, and we've been promoting this product now since about 2009, I believe, when we became a partner with those guys. And since that time, we've been able to do several things with Moto Turbo. One of them being, like what you're talking about, is being able to link Moto Turbo repeaters so that, effectively you can make the 15-peer limit totally scalable so that it's no longer an issue, and thus create these wide area links that you see going on around the country. Mm-hmm. So, for example, a club could exceed the 15-peer limit and have multiple repeaters distributed all over their network, and then they can link with other clubs. There's also the ability to put this software on in a virtual setting so that you now have this link, this effectively non-network appliance device managing several repeaters for a club. They have to be DMR, of course, mm-hmm. and you now have this wide area linking product, and that's called TLNet, which has got a lot of different derivatives, and we can get into those, but the digital side or the DMR side is supported.
Fantastic. So do you guys, do you build a DMR repeater, or do you build the accessory software just as you mentioned there with the TLNet?
No, we don't have a DMR repeater. We just have this network appliance, if you will, that allows for doing multi-site linking with DMR repeaters that are operating with IP Site Connect mode. And that's all these repeaters that you see, these DMR repeaters that are linked together are all operating in IP Site Connect.
Right. Okay.
So IP Site Connect is basically just, that's Turbo's way to say that they're going to, connect up to 15 repeaters using IP. So, and what Ron was alluding to earlier, is that, effectively the TLNet product takes the same radio over IP, and instead of limiting it to 15, makes it scalable to who knows how many at this point. But you can, and it's also where you can manage those links as well, where you can, set them up and take them down kind of, as necessary too. So.
I got you. So this is something that can be used on a club level basis, a statewide level, but even between friends?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it could be, if you've got a couple repeaters, one on one side of the state and one on the other, you could effectively link them together with this technology. But it's primarily an IP Site Connect enhancement. I mean, a lot of this technology is already built into the IP Site Connect product that's shipped with the Moto Turbo repeater. Mm-hmm. But what we're doing is eliminating this 15-peer limit, point one, and then secondly, we're allowing for group calling control and a bit more management capability through the TLNet interface that's all web-based.
Right. Ron, you were there. You've been around this DMR animal for a few years, more than a few years, nearly a decade or so.
2009.
Yeah, okay. Almost, half a decade, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. A little over 5 years. There we go.
Well, that's when Motorola started their third-party app development program. It was either 08 or 09. I know that the first powwow I went to was in 09 down in Florida. Mm-hmm.
Tell me, did you think that it would? Let me see if I can find the right one to say. Did you think it would become what it has for the amateur community versus what you knew it would be for the commercial folks?
You know, I really, at that time, you know, we were looking at working with some of the amateur radio folks, but really that was what's driven this thing is those folks out west, the DMR Mark folks. They were the ones that, you know, initially demoed the equipment and then ran with it. Mm-hmm. And then eventually, you know, they were Motorola people that just saw this and then began to push it in the amateur ranks. So, you know, a lot of credit has to go to these guys. They just went hog wild with it after, you know, seeing what it could do. Because Motorola was the one that, you know, primarily spearheaded this, the DMR push to where it's at right now. And it has become the dominant technology. And then, of course, you know, having these radios, a lot of these lower priced radios coming in from various places has helped, you know, put it into the hands of a lot of guys, you know, where you can, you know, get a DMR handheld now, what, for 140, who knows what now?
$110 on some days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's
okay.
Ridiculous. Well, yeah. Yeah. And that really helps something like this just go nuts. So.
Well, back to the conventional analog for just a second here, talking about things going nuts. You know, we look around in 220 because we've talked a lot about 220, a lot with you guys about 220. But we talk about 220 and DMR comes in. It's just it's the hottest thing, you know, and there'll probably be a flash in the pan next year at Dayton. It'll be a little different, you know. Might be the all mode all band rig that someone's developing to cover every digital mode. But to kind of get back to the 220 megahertz end of the spectrum here, that was a bad pun. Tell me a little bit about what's the deal with 220. Do clubs use it for their repeaters? Do you see clubs using a lot for the repeaters? Do you see folks using it for data packet networks? Where do you see folks really? I'm saying folks a lot. Sorry, Adam. Where are you seeing clubs and individuals using this 220? You're selling the gear every day, so you know what it's being used for. Is it primarily just conventional rag chewing, or are we pushing packets over it?
The answer is both, but, you know, primarily up to this point, it's been, you know, audio. Analog audio, right. You know, especially like if you go to the higher populous areas of the country, you know, where you can't get a 2 meter or 440 pair, we see an awful lot of our repeaters going to, you know, places like Seattle, Washington, Southern California, out New Jersey, New York, East Coast.
Right.
You know, where they're replacing, you know, machines that are 20, 25 years old that, you know, they've been replacing GE Master 2 parts to make them a 220 for the last 15 or 20 years, and now they just finally give up the ghost, you know?
Yeah.
So see an awful lot of that. And then, you know, we do have, you know, with the TNC folks that Ron was talking about with data, I mean, there is it's a small group but growing group of folks that are using it for data. So, you know, passing that data information. So
is that because you can send it so fast on 220? I mean, can't you do like, what is it, 9600 baud on 220?
Yeah, it's 9600 baud, but I don't think it has to do with the speed as much as just, I think it's, availability maybe?
No, there's really you could do 9600 baud on 440 or 2 meter as well. It's really a function of the hardware, okay? The radio itself, like for example, our 220 mobile is such that you can modulate the transmitter and send 9600. Okay, it's a limitation of the hardware, okay. And ours does not have that limitation. And we know of folks using it, so we know that the technologies are built into the radio to handle packets at that rate.
Did you specifically design the radio and the software inside the radio to be able to do that, Ron, or is it just a it was in there so it worked kind of a thing?
No, I had a small hand in the development of that side of it, to where I ensured that and this goes back to how we did our repeaters, okay, is that I made sure that the transmit technology would allow for me to send effectively a broadband data input straight to the TCXO. And, not to get into the technical weeds with you, but what you do is you generally mix audible information and subaudible information, okay? And that's all done right there at the TCXO. That stands for temperature controlled crystal oscillator. And then this gets sent on to the on down the transmitter path. Okay, so you need a separate path to the TCXO that's hopefully unimpeded. You don't have filters on it to where you're effectively reducing the bandwidth of that signal. So you want to be able to hit that TCXO with a higher bandwidth signal, and that's where this data is coming in at. It's shifting very quickly, and you don't want to filter out the higher frequencies. And so what I did is I made sure that this pathway to this crystal, if you will, was unimpeded so that you could modulate the transmitter frequency with a signal like a digital signal or a DSP, digital signal processor, or a D-Star, or a DMR, whatever. So
the radio has a jack on the rear of it, plug, jack, whatever we call it here. Is that something that you guys supply the cable for the TNC connections, or is that something that you can pick up off one of the internet vendors? Or
you can pick that off. Yeah, it's a high density 15 connector. It's very similar to it's actually the same kind of connector that you use like your VGA monitors. It's right. We have a female connector in the radio, and you would get the male connector, and there is a source for those. That's off the shelf at supply houses, Amazon.com. You can build a cable or get that connector and then build a cable appropriately. You only need about 4 or 5 lines off of it to do most things. So
okay. Well, we know that there's people in Alaska that are using that pretty seriously up there, and then there's folks in Washington State. I think some over here on my end of the country in North Carolina as well. So it's interesting, and even to the point that we're continuing to talk about building a packet network here in the upstate of South Carolina and using this 220 rig as a backbone. So that's, it's got potential for that here as well. So it's some really cool tech, and guys, it's a very solid built radio, very solid. I like it a lot. What's on the plate coming up next? What can we expect from BridgeCom in the next 6 months to a year? Any kind of outside the 2-meter 440 possibilities, even in land mobile stuff. What are you guys working on that direction?
Well, I think not sure if we talked about it earlier or not, but we talked a little bit about our radio IP product, and we're trying to rehouse that, so to speak, into a smaller footprint. So that way it'll be a little bit easier to manage, not take up so much space for the commercial side of the world as well as the amateur side. Trying to integrate all that into a Raspberry Pi type footprint, so be very small and easy to put around just about anything. Obviously, we got a bunch of Hamfests that we're going to as far as finish out the year. So really, as far as new equipment, probably the biggest thing is going to be the 2-meter and 440 mobile when that's available. We've got a line on some DMR radios that we're hopefully going to have out before too much longer, but I can't say much about them because we're not quite there yet. So I wish I could say more, but I can't.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Don't worry. As soon as we have them out, I'm sure you'll be one of the first to know. So
fantastic.
So that way you can pass them on to your listeners. Trying to think of what else that we've been. I mean, we've been, relatively busy here lately with repeaters sales, and then a lot of people that have recently started calling in to do interoperability stuff between like LTR and analog and digital, and and some of that with the radio over IP. So we're just trying to continue to find new ways to use those existing products that we have in new and exciting ways.
Now, you said Hamfest a couple of times, and I think somewhere in there you mentioned Shelby. Is that you're coming to Shelby this year?
I'm not going to be at Shelby, but Ron's going to be at Shelby.
Oh, cool.
He's going to. You might get to meet the whole Kahanowitz contingent, which is, if everybody's involved, that'd be 8.
That's more than me, Ron.
So
Yeah, I think we're gonna come down and take a few days and see North Carolina and do a ham fest while we're there. I think.
Very good, very good. Well,
Yeah.
I've paid for a booth. I'm not sure where I'm supposed to be yet, but I will be there. At least Friday,
good.
Saturday, maybe Sunday morning too. So, I'm sure we'll see each other, get to hang out, and maybe do some recording and whatnot there. It'd be great to see you again.
Okay, good.
They got some mean barbecue restaurants around there. That's one of the best parts of it. It's not Kansas City barbecue, but it's good. Okay.
fair enough.
There you go.
I wish I could make it, but that's Labor Day weekend, and
Yep.
that's a family deal for me. So
I haven't even sprung it on the family yet. So
they'll be listening to this podcast and be like, "We're going where?"
yeah, no, she doesn't listen. I'm good. But I will say my wife is studying for her technician's test, and that's really shocking. But she's actually doing really well with her studying, and 3 of my big kids are studying too. So maybe this time, maybe before the first of the year, I'll have 3 or 4 new licensees in the family. So we'll probably need some more radios by then.
I know where they can get some 220 gear.
Yeah, some good stuff. Guys, I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you for catching us up with what's happening at BridgeCom Systems. We can always find you're open 24 hours a day at bridgecomsystems.com. If they want to call you, because I know that this is the kind of business you guys operate. You're there to take the calls when folks have questions. They want to place an order with somebody that talks to them instead of just entering a credit card on the computer screen. Tell us how we can connect with you over the telephone to get in touch with you.
You bet. Phone number here is 816-532-8451. We're typically here 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, unless we're at a ham fest or unless we're gone to lunch during the middle of the day. So typical, business hours. If I see something that's crazy come through via email or something over the weekend, I'll try and respond, but try and leave the weekends like most folks, for family and stuff like that when I can. And Ron does the same thing, but we're always here and in touch one way or another, phone, email. We don't really do a Skype very often, but once in a while, if somebody wanted to, I guess we could do that too. But so
the key is the key is that you guys are there for your consumer base, and they're ready to help you if you have needs. Repeaters, mobiles, handy talkies, land mobile, amateur radio, they can take care of you. Guys, I really appreciate it again. Thank you so much for stopping by.
You bet. Thanks, Gail.
The big sale last month at MTCRadio.com on the ICOM 7300 with a discount was huge. Richard's just doing it up big down there in Texas. Don't they do everything big in Texas? I got to tell you, if you've got some ICOM needs, you need to check out our friends Richard and Christine Lenore, along with Tammy and Danielle, working it off. What they have, they're working it off down there in Texas. It's hot, but they are packing boxes and shipping stuff at some of the best deals on the internet every day at MTCRadio.com right now, effectively. It's already gone on. I didn't give you the date, but for a limited time, if you purchase a new ICOM IC 7300 from MTCRadio.com, they're going to throw in at no additional cost a $100 gift certificate for anything good in their store or their site, or they'll give you a 4-year extended warranty, which will keep your rig covered under warranty for 5 years total. So that's on the website. It's an option. You can find it when you go to order your ICOM IC 7300. It's the hottest thing going in amateur radio right now. And you can find the ICOM 7300 at the best price at mtcradio.com. Ever since I got licensed, I've always wondered what the deal was with 220. Now, we just talked to Ron and Tim about it from BridgeComSystems.com. But I asked them, I said, guys, do you have anybody that I could talk to that's out there real worlding this stuff? I mean, right here locally, we have the BridgeCom Systems 220 repeater. Matter of fact, we were probably one of the first 10 clubs in the U.S. to buy their 220 machine. It works great. I've got the mobile. I've got the handheld. The club's got the repeater. It's some banging stuff. But I wanted to talk to some folks who are using it maybe a little differently than we do. Around here locally, we're just talking chasing DX in the evening. Actually, that's not me because I'm not in the shack in the evening. Yeah, I'm in the house getting kids ready for bed. But anyway, I digress. We got Brian from Washington State. His call is Kilo 5, India, November. And we're going to catch up with Brian about what's happening on 220 megahertz in Washington State. Welcome in, Brian. I understand you've listened to maybe a couple of our shows in the past.
Yes, I have.
Well, I hope that you come back and listen to some more, especially this one.
I certainly will.
Hey, you have quite a few 220 megahertz repeaters in Washington State, and we were talking before we came on here about how 220 megahertz sometimes can seem to be a forgotten band, may even really be a forgotten band. What do you think about that? Is it something that hams just kind of let go? When the single band rigs basically all went to 2 meters, and it's really kind of been tough to find a 220 rig.
Historically, you had to convert Micors, Master Trues, etc. Way back, I got interested in ham in 220 about literally 22 years ago. I'm originally licensed in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and then moved out here for work. And I got interested in 220 then through a friend of mine, and saw it's like amazing how the band will travel compared to, it's of course different than UHF and almost the same as 2 meters as far as travel. And typically, this is just my opinion, no scientific anything here, the audio quality for a lot of your 220 repeaters seems to be a little sharper, cleaner. I don't know why that is. I have no technical explanation other than but let me explain a little bit what we've got going here, just to kind of give you an idea why we believe in it. We have, on the north end of Washington State, Lyman Peak, we have a 22478, which is owned by some other guys, but we're in cooperation. And then we have a quote-unquote central Puget Sound repeater, which is 220, also backed up with a UHF repeater linked. And then near the state capitol at the south end of Puget Sound, a 220 repeater. And then I'm in the process of adding probably 2 more. This is all up and down the I-5 corridor from southwestern Canada to northwestern Oregon. It won't cover all of western Washington because we got the ocean out there, but a lot of the a lot of the places will get out to the ocean, and the band just works well. In my opinion, I've had 220 repeaters now for 14 years, I guess, and it works well, travels well. Audio quality, and people also use it for packet. Have used it for packet. We have had a digital repeater in Western Washington. I think the guys I'm partnering with up north are thinking about a new 220 digital repeater with some pretty high baud rates and everything. So no scientific evidence other than us users, and I think it is a forgotten band. I know California uses it a lot, and it just plain old simply works.
Yeah, so up until the BridgeCom guys came out with the BCM 220 and the BCH 220, there were very few single band or tri-band rigs that had 220 as an additional band. Did you find when you put your repeaters up in your area, having a hard time getting your friends to purchase a rig to be able to chat on that particular frequency? Were they happy with what they had, or could they recognize the benefits of the 220 megahertz band?
I think that as a result, it's like on anything. You build it, they'll come. Put the repeaters up. It seems to attract more usage. That's part of the motivation. What we did with the linking all the repeaters. The UHF repeater, by the way, in the central area acts. I got this idea from the guys at Repeater Builder. Acts as a link or a hub for all the other 220 repeaters to link into, and then rebroadcast all over. We got 22478, 22458, 22408, and we're going to be soon putting on 22488, and then one other that we haven't set up a frequency for yet. So kind of see a pattern there, all the same PL.
Yeah.
So you can travel up and down and just have them all programmed in, and you can. That has helped generate some interest in the band. Could you do that same thing with UHF? Well, yeah, but what are you going to link? How are you going to link?
Right.
That's where, for us, using UHF as a hub, 220 as your main band, and you can use a pretty small UHF Yagi for your linking purposes, and make it work pretty darn good.
And I guess that the same could be said in reverse. If you were, let's say, putting up a UHF group of repeaters, you could use maybe 220 to link them with a nice small antenna as well, or smallish maybe.
Right. I have not looked into that myself, but you probably could. It seems like a lot of people like using 900 for that, but I know for traveling from the south repeater near my Capitol Peak to the furthest north repeater, there for a while when we first got started, we were linking on 220 in band, and it's 120 miles from tower to tower.
Wow.
And on 5 watts, we have a lot of, as you might have heard, a lot of rain around here.
Yeah.
In the wintertime, there was no phase distortion, no issues like that whatsoever between the two sites on 5 watts linking from the south end to the north end. So it has really worked out well for us. One antenna at 140 feet on the tower, one antenna at 60 feet on the tower, just a little 3-element Comtelco beam.
Right.
And now with the advent of BridgeCom's equipment, which I personally feel is really high quality, has seen some good reviews by some of the guys on Repeater Builder, not just based on opinion, but also based on WB6FLY, who just recently passed, unfortunately. He had done a review, and like Ron said, Eric basically took it apart and tested everything and said, it passes with flying colors, and it's pretty good. They got their good sensitivity. The band just works. I mean, it originally was kind of set up, if I remember my history lesson right, the novices could use, it was one of those bands that was first available to the novices way back in the day, before I was ever licensed. So that's where it's kind of got its start, I think. It's an interest, but the bottom portion of the band has been taken over by commercial. So we lost 2 megahertz, but 222 to 225 is still available for us, and the one thing that was kind of discouraging too in the past was that there was no commercially made available equipment available around. You had to convert your Master 2s and Micors and so forth. Now with the advent of Ron's equipment at BridgeCom, and there's still some stuff like Midlands that you can convert, make into repeaters too.
Right.
So it's and you certainly can buy duplexers from all the big manufacturers. And in fact, all of the antennas I'm using are ACSB amplitude compounded sideband systems that went defunct. Their Sinclair antennas work perfectly for us, and getting those on the cheap. So there is some opportunities for some equipment out there.
Yeah. Well, it seems to me that it's almost like you said, when you build it, they will come. We've got a local repeater here. It's a BridgeCom 220 machine. And it's where the guys hang out chasing DX in the evenings. It's generally quiet through the day, but there's always a good, clear, crisp signal there when you do make the contact. I really enjoy the 220 megahertz band. But it's awful quiet around here. Now, it doesn't sound like it's very quiet up where you guys are. Going back in the history of setting these repeaters up in your area, before I let you go, give me a little idea of why you chose to use 1.25 meters.
When I lived up north, I lived on top of a 600-foot hill, which in the same town you had aircraft carrier literally parked right there. So that was a pretty good spot to be living. And I was on 2-meter simplex, and I was hearing people in Vancouver, BC, and down in Seattle, and it was just like, this is ridiculous. I can't even be on simplex without listening to people heterodyning. And so one of the guys suggested we put up a UHF machine at my place, and then that morphed into, let's do a 220 also. And ever since then, I'd already known about 220's existence and used it quite a bit, but to actually become a repeater owner, and it's just, I like the band. I really, I've invested a lot in it, and a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of participation. We have a loose-knit group of guys. We don't have a club here. I'm the trustee of the W7WRG Whiskey Radio Golf Repeater Group, and if I need help, put out a phone call or say something on the air, and you've got multiple guys willing to help. And it's just, to me, it's kind of the spirit of ham radio.
Yeah.
And most everybody's got 220. Some of them don't, but since we use one UHF repeater as a hub, they can also access the 220 system. And then, of course, I got to get me one of those radios. Yeah, you do.
That's cool. That's cool stuff. Yeah, you'll find, well, I guess it's just a cross-section of society, but you'll find some really good ones, a few not so great ones sprinkled in here and there. But I tell you, ham radio has been great to me, the community locally and across the nation since starting this program has just been so rewarding to be a part of. And it's great to hear the success you guys are having in Washington State. If you had any advice, before I let you go, if you had any advice for someone starting with their first repeater, what would that be? If you knew a guy, whether it was 220, 440, 2 meters, whatever, what would be some advice you'd share with them?
Quality equipment, quality feed line. I used to hear from other guys about, you don't need to use hardline, half-inch hardline, that's kind of a waste. And it's like, well, I'm here to tell you, it really, even at 220, half-inch hardline is what I use. I got a 150-foot run on one of my repeaters, and it does really help a lot to use quality equipment. It's a little more, it only hurts once, as the saying goes. You pay for it up front and do it right. Your interconnects between your repeater, your duplexer, etc. Do it right. Don't go with the cheap stuff. No LMR 400. Go with good quality stuff, and you won't have any descents. You'll have, everybody's got, if you put up a repeater, everybody's got an opinion. Do it right, and they have a lot less to complain about, and it's there to have fun with anyway. And as far as I'm concerned, when this spring we had a earthquake drill here in Washington State, and I had made the whole system available. So I'm losing the track of the name, but anyway.
Was it the Cascadia Rising exercise that FEMA did? Yeah, I'm familiar. Go ahead.
Yeah. So some of the counties out on the Pacific coast were checking in via 220. They didn't use as much as I hoped they would, but since it's a network system, they were able to get in and it could literally talk from out in the San Juan Islands all the way down to state capital, quite a distance if they wanted to. And I'm a real fan of 220. Yeah. So I've been licensed for 24 years, and 23 years of that time I've always had 220 gear. So, and it's just a good band. It really does work. And now that the commercial stuff is starting to come available for a quality repeater, it's well worth it.
Fantastic. Brian, give us your call one more time.
My call is Kilo 5 India November.
K5 KN?
No, K5 Kilo 5 India November.
Oh, K5 IN. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm the trustee for the W7 Whiskey Radio Golf, W7 WRG radio group here in Western Washington.
Fantastic. Well, man, we appreciate you being on. Do you guys have a website for your radio group?
No, we need to get one up. We don't have one yet.
Well, everybody's moving to Facebook anyway. Just go over there and you'll have. That's where everybody goes, it seems. Man, I really appreciate you coming on. I know this is like super ultra last minute request, but thank you so much for sharing with us your experiences with 220. And it's good to hear. You know, we always hear the questions, well, how does it compare? And as a user for 20 some odd years, you should have some experience in telling us that it works a lot like 2 meters and sounds good like 440. That's great to hear. And I hope folks, continue to experiment with the band and use it. And it's just great to know that we have folks like the guys at BridgeCom bringing gear out for us. That's exciting. That's making it happen. So appreciate you very much, and we'll hopefully catch up with you soon on the air. Okay, well, I totally enjoy it. By the way, I do use my repeaters in conjunction with the RCOM controller, which marries up with the BridgeCom repeater very well, and that way I've got linking capabilities. And cool. One advantage of using 220 also is that with the RCOM controller, then you could have a dual band radio as a remote base, and no interference from the 220 using 2 meters and 440. It gives you a lot of flexibility. Nice, good stuff to know there, man. I appreciate it again, Brian. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. I'm a Kenwood guy. I am. I've said it 100 times. I say it every show. Kenwood radios are my favorite. Knocking all the way back to my Kenwood TS850, my Kenwood TS50. I love them, man. I've got a shack full of Kenwood stuff here. But I'm going to tell you, one of the things that really excites me is the brand new Kenwood tri-band D-Star enabled handy talkie. Now, we saw it at the Hamvention, and it looked really, really cool, but we have no idea what it's going to cost, and really not sure. I'm guessing November before Christmas it'll be available. There's rumors everywhere, but I can tell you this. If you need anything that's branded Kenwood, you need to check MTCRadio.com. Let Richard and Christine, Tammy and Danielle know that you heard about them here on HamRadio360.com, the podcast. Get on down to MTCRadio.com for all the best deals on all the Kenwood gear today. Continuing up north, towards Alaska. Hey, Andrew, what's up, man? Hey, we're going to catch up with Kent, Kilo Lima 5 Tango from Alaska. And Kent's also a big-time BridgeCom user. He's also really heavily involved in 220. And he's going to give us some thoughts about how him and his club utilize that band for their area. Now, I know that we don't not all of us live in Alaska. We might have, 15 listeners listening in Alaska. And thank you very much for listening, by the way. Now, seriously, Alaska's huge, literally. And 220 right now is huge up there. And Kent's going to tell us why. Kent, welcome in to Ham Radio 360, the podcast. This may be my very first ever Alaskan contact.
Well, congratulations. I sent out a lot of QSL cards for first-time Alaska contacts.
Well, here we go. This will count for a little something. Hey, we appreciate you, of course, coming on here with us. I want to talk to you about 220 megahertz up in the Great Northwest. Tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing in your local area.
Right. Well, we've had in the local area, we've had a 220 voice repeater up for quite a number of years. There's actually 2 voice repeaters up in Alaska that I'm aware of on 220, one here in Anchorage and one up in Fairbanks. But it's a very underutilized band, as we all know. And, it's a use it or lose it thing. And we just thought there was a great opportunity to expand its use here. And we've been very interested in moving towards a higher rate packet. 9600 baud, and we've been looking for a 220 rig that might be able to accommodate that, and it turned out that this BridgeCom rig is sort of pre-wired for it, direct access to discriminator audio and that sort of thing via connector, so we thought we'd give it a try. And so that's what we're doing is, we're on 2 meters and 440 with packet 1200 and 9600 baud, but now we're on 220, and we've got a pretty good supply of radios up here that are coming online, and they're using it for MCOM and that sort of thing. So it's been quite interesting.
So now you guys have a lot of these BridgeCom rigs up in the area. What, 20, 25 rigs by now?
Well, right now I think we've got 18 of these BridgeCom BCM 220s. I think that's how many we've purchased so far between, sort of doing a group purchase with folks. I'm quite certain that as we roll this out and get it online, that I wouldn't be surprised to see that approach 50 or more by the at the end of the day.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about. We know it's underused. We know it's use it or lose it. But was it just something that you guys wanted to try to do 220 data, or was it? Did it make good sense for your area of operations up there? You said you had it on 2 meters and 440. What was the draw to 220?
Well, that's a good question. Just an underutilized band. We, in 2 meters, we've got a pretty not entrenched, but a pretty substantial network on 1200 baud, and not so much so on 440. But we just wanted to expand the use of if you will, high-speed packet and get onto a band that was a little more free and clear, and get onto a band that had some. What we wanted was, we've been needing some of the characteristics of 2 meters and the characteristics of 440 to help us with our particular situation here, given terrain and buildings and all of this sort of stuff. So 220 kind of gives us the best of both worlds, and we're sort of finding that to be true. It's working quite well, and quite frankly, I've been operating 9600 baud 220 with this rig out of my car, moving large files, just testing.
Yeah.
And boy, we're just getting really great throughput and moving data over considerable distances while driving down the road.
That's pretty awesome. We don't hear about that a lot. When I think packet, I think of guys sitting in his shack and he's got an old 486 machine running with a TNC and a 2 meter rig. But you guys are moving some stuff and doing it mobile. That's just crazy. I didn't realize people were. I've seen people on the internet testing and this and that, but I didn't realize people were putting it in practice and it doing that in Alaska. That gets cool points on top of it all.
Well, it's kind of cool. It's kind of crazy, I guess. But it's really, just sort of to help us get a perspective on how well these can operate, and we are putting these things into our MCOM mobile assets that might be rolling down the road, and we might have a need to run mobile packet from time to time. But it's just it's a cool resource, and we're finding it's working pretty darn good. These are pretty robust radios.
Yeah, they're built. They remind me of Army tanks. Literally, they're built a lot tougher than what we normally see come out of just a regular amateur piece of equipment.
They are, and they of course they have kind of a commercial look and feel, and we've figured out a way to use the memory channels to our advantage to be able to put displays up on those memory channels that make sense to us as amateurs. That we'll plug in the frequency so it displays in the memory channel, because that normally doesn't display by default in memory mode. But anyway, we've got a scheme set up that makes it work pretty good.
Very good. Let me ask you something, just out of curiosity here. We're having kind of a hard, I don't say a hard time, but we're not finding a lot of excitement here in the upstate of South Carolina when we talk to other amateurs about getting a packet network started in this area, even on 2 meters, which everybody normally has at least 1 or 4 spare 2 meter rigs laying around. How in the world did you convince the guys up there, and gals, I'm assuming, to to invest in a 220 rig, or is it just kind of the natural progression of things in your local area with your friends and operators?
Oh, I think it's probably a combination of things. There are a lot of folks that kind of see this as just a fun thing to do, and of course we're looking at it. I'm looking at it. Quite a bit of this perspective is from an MCOM perspective. To be able to get onto a band there's really not much going on, and we don't have a lot of conflicts, and not that we have a lot of conflicts anyway. I mean, my gosh, there's plenty of spectrum out there for us, but this is just a good band with a good opportunity, and we've had some challenges with MCOM getting some communications, effective communications between certain points. Again, going back to this nature of 220, the good characteristics of 2 meters rather and 440 kind of coming together on 220. So, right. Like-minded folks and just working together. And the club here has purchased several of these, and individuals. I've purchased several of them, and yeah, it's just hey, it's ham radio. It's fun stuff.
Let me ask you this: Can you kind of break down, give me a comparison between sending packets over 2 meters at say 1200 versus 220 at 9600? Is there a discernible difference there?
Oh, it's tremendous. When you get 9600 baud working perfectly, working the way it should, you wonder what took you so long. And there are some challenges there, of course. It's not as easy technically, but we run some test files, and I think we're running like 27K files in I think a minute and a half.
Wow,
something like that. We run some 96K files for testing. I think we're running them I think we can get them pushed over in about 4.5 minutes. Now, it doesn't sound like a big file, but it's a pretty big file. And but if you try to do the same thing at 1200 baud, well, you know what? I haven't even timed that. It just I know it's quite a while.
Well, you mentioned using it for MCOM, and there's nothing like being able to send a site report or some sort of message back and forth in times of duress and getting it there quickly, and being able to do that much faster, especially with a good band that you're practicing and using now. That makes all the sense in the world to me.
Yeah, I think so, and it gives us the opportunity to, if we even low res photos. Which aren't too big, we can get those pushed across. We can move, like Word files and Excel files, spreadsheets, that sort of thing. At 1200 baud, you don't really want to do that because it's going to take you a while.
Yeah.
But at 96, it's really a doable thing. What? You've got to be reasonable.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about your antennas. You said you were running 220 mobile. Do you have a particular brand or particular model that's working real well for you right there?
Quite frankly, in my mobile, I just right now have a sort of a temporary mag mount quarter wave. I just cut a whip down and stuck it into a mag mount base, and that's what I'm using there in the mobile, and it's working remarkably well. For some of the fixed locations, we're using we bought some of those Ed Fong
hey, that's what I've got.
Antennas for 220.
Yeah, that's what I've got up on my shack. Ed does a great job on those too, man.
Yeah, pretty pleased with those. They work pretty good.
Yeah.
And then we've got some other commercial, Larson stuff or Diamond. I'm looking here at a Diamond. What is it? An NR1. No, I don't know if that's the one or not. But anyway, some commercial stuff.
So you're using Omnis. You're not using any directionals.
Yeah, I think that would be fair to say right now. We're just using Omnis. I think there are some guys. I think there are some guys out in the Matsu Valley. One guy that's he's pushing a beam back in our direction, but I don't know how many elements.
Right.
But I know we've got a good path with him.
Yeah, and even if it was 12 elements, it's still not that big anyway. So that's kind of cool too when you think about it. You get a lot of directional power there with a very small Type Yagi. So that's kind of cool, I think, as well.
Oh yeah, it's a little more manageable than 2 meters. That's for sure.
A lot more manageable for sure. Well, Kent, before I let you go, do you have anything else you'd like to share about your experiences with 220 here with the audience?
It's just it's been a good experience so far. We're finding it to be effective. We're finding it, besides 220, making this particular rig work with. We're using the Cantronics 9612s, and we're also experimenting or using. Actually, we got a couple of them, these SCS Tracker DSP TNCs, but both of which we successfully interfaced with this BridgeCom rig. So I don't know. 220 is an interesting band. It's underutilized, and I hope that we could put up another repeater or two in the area, because it just works really well.
Very good, man. Well, hey, we appreciate you coming on, and thank you. Before we go, we've got some friends that listen. We know AL7U is up in that direction. Andrew, he says that you guys have huge mosquitoes, and it gets hot in Alaska during the summertime. Is that the truth?
Well, there's some element of truth to that. we only the B-52s come out in the spring. Meaning the big mosquitoes, and later on, then they have their babies and the little guys. They're ferocious in their own right. They get you by their numbers. Hey, listen, I got out of work today this afternoon before the interview, got in the car, and it was 70 degrees. So there you go.
Wow. I didn't know it could get that warm.
Beautiful day.
It was 96 today in South Carolina. So I would swap with you, because we have mosquitoes too. But anyway.
Yeah, we're not carrying the viruses either up here. With them.
Y'all get rid of those.
Whatever it's called, yeah.
Yeah, we hadn't. I don't. Anyway, we could do a whole show on something like that, but we'll skip it for tonight. Kent, thank you again. We appreciate you coming on, and wish you guys all the best up there with your 220 exploits. Do you guys have a website, anything, a Facebook group, or anything that you and your friends there that are operating this 220 network? Y'all have any way for folks to kind of check in on what you're doing up there, or are you guys just kind of handling it locally?
Yeah, it's pretty local. I mean, we've got our club website, KL7AA.net. But I don't know if we have anything up there posted about our 220 exploits at this point. I know that we will.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again, Kent. We appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Cal.
And that'll wrap episode number 58. Thanks again to Ron, Tim, Brian, and Kent. Really appreciate you guys being here with us. We covered the entire United States nearly this time through, so appreciate you guys checking us out and spending some time with us here on the Ham Radio 360 podcast. Again, my name's Cale. Thank you so much. It's been a lot of fun. We'd love for you to share our show, like our show, review our show. Let us know what you'd like to hear about, how we can improve. Hey, don't forget Workbench, the podcast, will be out next Tuesday. They're going to be talking about meters, and they're interested in wanting to know what you want to know about meters. So you go to the website, hamradio360.com, click on the Workbench tab, find the information there. Thank you again for listening. Really, I wouldn't do this just for my health. Actually, I'm not doing it for my health. This is a lot of work. You ask any podcaster, any of the video guys, YouTubers, whatever you're supposed to call them, this is a lot of work. And we're doing it because we enjoy spending time with you. Love getting comments and whatnot from all of you, knowing that we're a part of your amateur radio experience. So keep the comments coming, the shares, the likes, the tweets, and whatnot. We're wanting to hear from you. Now, real quick, NFL football is really, really close, and I'm a huge football fan. I know this has nothing to do with amateur radio, but it's like what I do on the weekends, and I love football. So if you're a football fan and you would like to participate in a league here, a fantasy league of Ham Radio 360 podcast listeners, I need to know ASAP. So as soon as you hear this, if you're down with football and you want to play fantasy football with us, please let me know. I don't know how we're going to work it out, but I got to first know how many people are interested. So email me, message me, tweet me, whatever. If you're down with a fantasy football league, let me know. I'm going to jump out of here. I'm about out of music. God bless you guys. Thank you again so much for listening. We'll see you next time. 73, y'all.
Thank you for listening to Ham Radio 360, brought to you by MTCRadio.com. For more information about the program, visit hamradio360.com. Till next time, 73s, y'all.